Hello and welcome to the Keith Small podcast, where we're diving deep with the business owners shaping Pembrokeshire. I'm Keith Small, and each week I sit down with the entrepreneurs and leaders driving our community forwards. Whether it's their biggest win, their toughest challenges, or the unexpected turns that got them here, you're going to hear all about it. So stick around. This podcast is brought to you by Media to Motion. Hello and welcome to the Keith Small podcast. I'm Keith Small and I get to meet, greet, welcome and have wonderful conversations with business owners and entrepreneurs from all over Pembrokeshire to find out what life in Pembrokeshire is like. Great to have a business here for everybody, I'm sure, but I want to find out the journeys, the stories and all the wonderful bits that bring us today to where we are. And today I am really excited to welcome Ellen Picton from Health Aspire, someone I have known and worked with on many occasions, but today I get to find out a little bit more, find out all about your business, what you do and what it means to work in Pembrokeshire. But Ellen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm okay.
Well, I was particularly excited about this, but there's one note of disappointment I'm going to bring out. Normally when you come to an event, there are energy balls, there are smoothies, and today we're on water and we're on green tea, which is wonderful, but when you come next time.
I know. So it was in my mind, but on last Friday I had a call from Bluestone asking could we last a minute help them for an event on Monday, part of Mental Health Awareness Week. So on Sunday I made 210 energy balls. My biceps were on fire. So I think I'm in recovery. So I thought I can't do any more.
I can well imagine. I saw the post.
You some.
Yeah, do you know what? If you could write me an IOU, that would be great. Yeah. But any flavours, I don't mind. They're all delicious. But really want to kind of dig into the business and what you do, because we talked about your energy balls, you talked about Mental Health Awareness Week. Already. However, what is it that you do? Tell me about Health Aspire. What is your business? How do you help people? What solutions do you provide?
Okay, so Health Aspire will be 12 years old this October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we just mentioned that 1 year ago today, we celebrated 10-year anniversary. So we did the event at the Torch Theatre, which you were at, but going into 12 years in October. So I'm a nutritionist, a registered nutritionist. We are a team of 4 now. So I have Helen Brown, who is a nutritionist looking after our allergy and intolerance testing clients. She also specialises in sports nutrition as well. We've got Jill, who's the office manager, who's the anchor to keep us all doing what we should. And then Natalie, who helps out with all the many events that we do. So I think when people think of a nutritionist, they'd maybe just think of somebody sat in a room above a health food shop and that maybe they are just going to... Well, someone said to me the other day, oh, my friend said, I've got this nutrition appointment and are you just going to give me chia seeds? And I said, no.
So chia seeds the answer to everything. Is that like an exclusive I can post? Yeah, thank you.
So when I set the business up, I wanted it to be not just nutritional advice, but how to create nutritious food and to keep it really simple, because there's so much advice out there now more than ever. And you will have one expert in one podcast telling you to do one thing and then something completely different. They're both professors, they're both experts in their field. So I just try to simplify it. So I am a nutritionist, but also I do a lot of cookery demos. I mean, probably the year before last, I think I did 150 cookery demos.
Wow, that's immense.
A lot.
Yeah, how do you keep up?
Energy balls.
There you go.
So a nutrition-based company, but working a lot in the community and simplifying nutrition, just to give people simple swaps, I'd say, to help with lifestyle changes.
I have to say, one of the big things that always sticks with me from the times that I've seen you present or I've worked with you is the phrase simple swaps. And it is just a case of thinking, what can I do slightly differently? And it's those little changes that seem to make the big differences. But who do you find you help the most? Have you got like particular clients that you service? I know you're very specific in the advice you give and it's brilliant, but who are the kind of particular clients that you really service, that you look after?
A kind of typical week, maybe I would do sort of 3 days a week in the office and doing one-to-one work. So that could be anything, whatever people are suffering with, they would come in. I would say we're probably known for food intolerance and allergy, and then which links heavily to IBS. But then anything from eczema, headaches, infertility, menopause, so many. So people always say, what do you do? And like, well, we treat the whole person. So when they come in, the consultation's really comprehensive, and then you're kind of working with and breaking it down. And then on the business side, work with many businesses, whether that's doing wellbeing days. I'm part of what's called a FACE project with Pembrokeshire County Council, delivering to schools. So I've been in, I think, 137 school visits now. Maybe.
That's on top of the cookery demos as
well.
Oh my gosh,
and then go into companies and do wellbeing days. So we'd be part of that, or like delivering webinars. So it's really varied. Like people say, and run retreats. I have to get that in.
I'm going to come to that.
People say you can never be bored, and I'm like, well, no, because every day is, you think, right, where am I going? What am I talking about?
There's so many different challenges on there. And I think the thing is that always comes to mind for me is when you go through the list of people who you help or the solutions you provide, food seems to be something that can be at the forefront of so many different things in terms of healing, health and well-being. Is that something that you've seen people kind of grow into the idea of over the years, or is that kind of like something that's always been there? What's the kind of change for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I started the business in Pembrokeshire, I almost had to market, well, what is a nutritionist? Because if you were marketing that in Cardiff, for example, there would be 20 other, 30, 40 other. So you were kind of marketing against them. Whereas here, there's not loads of us. So initially it was like, well, what does a nutritionist actually do? So now I think the knowledge is there. People are listening to podcasts, watching things. There are lots of programs, but it's almost gone the other way, because I have people and they go, oh, well, I heard on TikTok that I should take like this much vitamin D. And I'm like, well, that's probably a bit of a toxic level, and being sucked into lots of supplements. But I think it depends on the age. Like between 20 and 30, these people definitely have more of awareness of well-being.
That's for sure.
And what we're putting in our bodies. And then I'd say 30 to 40, we're busy and we're kind of just doing what we can. And sometimes those people are getting ready meals and because it's busy. And then maybe people are older, they're starting to look into it, but maybe they just think, well, I've eaten the same thing for 40 years and I've been fine. So it's a real
My mum falls
mix.
into that category for sure. Yeah.
Why would this food be bad? So it's really interesting, like who you're speaking to, of their understanding of it. But I think you just have to think it's such a big part of the lifestyle medicine jigsaw. So meaning, nutrition, exercise, sleeping well, managing stress. But I'd say to people, you have to eat every day, so that's just an easy thing to work on.
And I think that's the whole thing. There are the things that you share, they're so helpful, they're so fun, but it's like, I can do that. And I think that's where people switch on. And the bit that I really want to kind of switch, because you mentioned about different things in terms of healing and health and food and so on. What got you to become a nutritionist? And then what then made you go, and also I'm going to set up a business? How did that journey kind of evolve for you from where you are now to where it all began? So how did it happen?
So it's a bit of a long answer.
Go for it. We've got time.
Okay,
Go for it.
Okay. So when I was 19, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. I'd always loved cooking as a child. And when I'm a twin, so we used to have this tick system. If you did a job, you'd got a tick and you'd get to the end of the ticks and you'd say, so you can choose a thing you want to do. And I would always say cooking. When I was diagnosed with celiac disease, I had to kind of relearn then how to cook everything gluten-free. And it was really hard then, because there were no like bold ingredients, on all the packaging and things. I remember like walking around supermarket crying. It took like 3 hours just to find things. So it was kind of, I think, just there, there's kind of interest in food. But I had suffered in my early 20s with endometriosis and had lots of in and out of hospital and procedures. And when I was 24, I was offered a hysterectomy, basically. And they said it will be a miracle if you could conceive. You've got so much scar tissue, your body's not going to hold a baby. So you can either go have a hysterectomy or be induced into the menopause for 2 years, and see if that helps, just giving everything a break. And I said, none of those. I remember the consultant at the time, he said, well, when do you want to come back? And I said, I don't want to, I'm fed up of coming in back and to have a procedure, then to have an infection, and I'd just be so unwell. And so I just said, I'm just going to see what I can do myself. So I kind of embarked on this bit of journey, starting looking into nutrition, I started doing yoga, exercise, because when you've got celiac disease, they will give you prescription for, all this kind of gluten-free bread and pasta, and it's so produced, ultra processed. So I kind of started eating this, but I felt worse, not better. So that was kind of where it all stemmed from. And I met my partner then, Anthony, who is now my husband, and I said to him, I can't have children. I've been told it'll be a miracle. Is that okay with you? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So I kind of embarked on this journey. Well, then probably within not that many months, I fell pregnant. It was a bit of a shock. And the whole pregnancy, I was told, oh, you're not going to hold this baby. They wanted to give me a cervical stitch. I won't give you the details, but...
Thank you.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
And then at 22 weeks pregnant, they wanted to... they said, this baby's coming. We're going to give you steroids. We're going to help her lungs. And then I was back in and out of hospital. And in the end, after all the kind of worrying, she was born 2 weeks late on Mother's Day.
Perfect.
And also on my mum's birthday. And I remember holding her, Isabel, she's called, I remember holding her, sitting in this ward and thinking underneath, I could have had a hysterectomy. So I was on maternity leave then. I'd worked for Radio Pembrokeshire for 10 years. I was there at the time. And I remember just being in the car park of Tesco, Milford Haven. And if anyone's seen the film, The Blues Brothers, where the light comes down and they said, we're going to get the band back together. It was like that moment. I want to be a nutritionist. That was the moment. I went home and I said, I want to be a nutritionist. Okay. So I tried to leave 3 times Radio Pembrokeshire, and they kept, our parents will give you different offers close to home. And I was just like, it's not that. It's I've got this calling. I want to do this because for me, it had given me this miracle baby, and I just felt compelled to help others. So that's the long answer.
It's an incredibly inspiring story. It really is. From being told you can't to going, well, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it my way. Just incredible. And it's that whole thing about looking after yourself, eating well. And it's just, as I said, it's so inspiring to hear that change can happen. Health can be just simply because you decide, what can I do to look after myself? What can I do to heal? And so this is the thing. This is the calling that took you into this role. I want to help others. I always ask this question. I feel today is particularly important. What motivates you then each day? Is it that continued, that's the calling? Or is the motivation kind of evolved? What is it that keeps you going now with work?
It is to help other people, and I think because of having celiac disease and endometriosis and all these other things, I think there's a huge empathy when people walk through the door, and people come in, and in the consultation sometimes people burst into tears because maybe it's the first time someone's been present for them to listen about all of their issues. And I think sometimes ailments can be worse than a big illness because these things are just kind of horrible every single day. So it is, and sometimes I wake up and it's been busy and we've done loads of events and I'm like, but I'm like, no, because people need help and support and just guidance, and if that one little bit of information can help change them and make them feel better, then that's the reason why you get up and do it. For me,
that's incredible, because I think this is the whole thing, and we'll come to the specifics of Pembrokeshire in a little while. But for anybody who runs a business, owns a business, works for themselves, there's always going to be challenges. And I'm always a big fan of kind of going back to, why do I do this? Not as a, why am I doing this? But why do I do this? So it lifts you and makes you, this is why I'm doing it. Here's my goal. Here's my motive, and so on. So I guess the thing that kind of to throw into this conversation is challenges. We all have them. Loads of people would love to hear. Obviously, you've been going for 12 years now. And I always think if you're going to find success, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles. What's been your biggest challenge? Is it a thing? Has it been your mind? What's been the biggest challenge for you over the years?
I think it's you kind of it is like being on an emotional roller coaster when you're self-employed, and you can have a lovely testimonial come in and you think, oh, that's like that's kind of brought me loads of joy, and then the next day you get another phone call, and maybe you have to spend a load of money on a particular thing, the bookkeeper phone call.
Yeah, that's the one. Did you know you got it? Oh.
And it's just and you're in this kind of constant, I mean, it's like just a constant game of Russian roulette, and you're taking risks all the time, and you're thinking, well, I hope it works. One of the things that I've been asked to do recently is work for Big Ideas Wales, which is a Welsh government programme where you go into schools and you talk to teenagers about like entrepreneurship. And it's funny because when you ask them, what would you like to do? What would you like to be? They go rich. And I go, well, how are you going to get to be rich?
That's the question.
Because there's a big journey. So I think, generally it is just kind of living with this up and down and holding your nerve and thinking, on a day where it's tough, you think, okay, well, tomorrow, it's going to be better, or just think, just keep the faith, it's going to be okay. I'd say an actual biggest challenge, so early on in the business, probably a few years in, we started making, so we had a commercial kitchen in my very first premises. So we had the office for consultation, commercial kitchen, and we used to do a lot of like cookery lessons in the demos, workshops, but we started making these chocolate truffles that were so dark chocolate, gluten-free, low sugar. We had a dairy-free range. They were just for our general clients as a bit of a treat. Then we started selling them at like little events and markets, and then it became its own thing, where I had to have I brought in directors basically, and quite quickly, like we had support then from Cywine, who are a food centre, Wales, in Horeb, which is like the middle of nowhere, and they helped with developing like all the trade and standard stuff, the branding. We went to the Royal Welsh Show with the product, and then it started growing. Started selling online, and it was so hard because I'd be kind of in the office seeing clients, and then in between I'd like stick my head in the kitchen and be like, how are you getting on? There's like chocolate everywhere. If you've ever worked with chocolate, it's messy.
Yes.
On the door handles, everywhere. When it sets on the table, it's a nightmare. So it was a real pull because I felt like, this new business, it was exciting when you're selling a product. That's great, more than time, because obviously one time you've only got a limited supply of it. So brought in these directors, new people invested, and we took on a premises on opposite side of the marina. But it was so hard because I was running Health Aspire and I could see Health Aspire, starting to struggle.
The balance was starting to shift.
Because you're investing now, anyone who's in Health Aspire investing in this, and then as it kind of grew, kind of the other directors wanted maybe to bring in like milk chocolate range, which I get for a chocolate shop. But for me, I was like, the
well,
sugar.
that's kind of going against your values, isn't it? Completely. Oh my gosh.
And there was one point, we were doing wholesale, so they were being shipped off all around a company called Blasafoyd, so in delis in Wales, and that was amazing, to see it was growing. And one Christmas ITV came and they said, could we film? And it was like, there were so many people making truffles. It was like a little workshop of elves, and we had like people queuing at the door, and so it was busy. But I had to get to the point where I was like, right, I'm gonna have to walk away, because I set out to help people with their health, and it was pulling too much on Health Aspire. So some of the directors left, and then a lady then took it over, and it only just recently closed.
So it went on for a while,
a long time. And which it's a strange thing, to think, because it was there for such a long time and amazing. But I think it's that point you get to a crossroads in business and you think, right, am I gonna, because I could have just said, right, I'll just not bother with Healthspire. I'm gonna, but I was like, no, I've got to go back to my, core.
You're back to your Blues Brother moment, aren't you? That's the thing, that way of life. Yeah.
And go, right, I'm gonna go. And it probably took 2 years for Healthspire to kind of recover almost financially, I would say. And just because your focus had been somewhere else, you're kind of just pushing and pushing again. So that was what I'd say one of the hardest.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is from that as well, I always look at it that whatever you experience is preparing you for what comes next. There's a lesson to come from it. And the bits I was taking from it is it wasn't your original dream. You had values you wanted to deliver and the shift was there. What did you take from that whole experience? Was there anything that made, because you came back to about focus. So is there a kind of a lesson that you took from that you're able to kind of use in other areas of your life and your business now?
Yeah, I think you've just got to not wear yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And it is hard in Pembrokeshire because you see it sometimes in some of the shops, the shops that have been here a long time, and maybe they started out selling plant pots and now they sell every kind of hardware item because to survive here you have to do lots of different things. And I think if I just did nutritional consultations, that probably wouldn't be enough to be doing a very full-time role. And so there's always lots of strands to the business, but they all kind of link back into nutrition.
I mean, that's the thing, is because I want to talk about the challenges and opportunities that working in Pembrokeshire and having a business in Pembrokeshire represents, which we'll come to. But you mentioned the different strands that you've got.
Yeah.
So you gently mentioned retreats.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about the lovely stuff where you go in and you work, you do demos with businesses and schools. I've seen you on street fairs and so on. So there's a bit more about that. But the one thing I have to say, whenever I see you do one of your demos, it's the most polished thing where you're holding conversation, you're telling people what they should be doing to think about, you're talking about all the wonderful food that's going in, the benefits it can provide, while you're still preparing meals and treats and snacks and also. So it's huge and wonderful to watch. But tell us about all the different areas of your business. Tell me everything about Health Aspire and the retreats, and give me the lot.
So, I'll just quickly answer that I didn't finish. So I think it's just not wearing yourself too thin, but keeping those core. So in a nutshell, nutritional consultations and writing plans. Then allergy intolerance testing. So that would be kind of the office-based. So people always think, well, what is the consultation? Basically, you come in, we're going to ask you, from head to toe, every symptom that's going on. Ask about your energy, about your sleep, about current food diaries. And we always say, please be honest, because we know when you're lying. About supplements, about medication. And then we're kind of giving suggestions and for some people then writing a plan. Then the work with the schools. So that was the brainchild of a lady called Jenny Turner. So big shout out to her. I can't remember whether it was after or before lockdown, but we did a pilot in our premises. So when I had the commercial kitchen, we had families come from Milford Comp. So that project basically go into a school. The school identifies 10 families, and then they will go through like a 4-week course. So it could be on maths, it could be about citizens' advice, come in, talk to them about financial, and then I am one of those sessions, so I am doing a cookery demo about budget eating, giving them loads of tips about just kind of simple ways of getting the children to eat maybe more vegetables, tasting vegetables. Their children will help you sometimes, although if you're working with 3-year-olds, which we've done the last year in Flying Starts, you give them a carrot to peel and they just eat it.
Who's just going in? That's the thing, isn't it?
So that has been kind of the last 3 years. That's been a big part of what I've been doing. Community cookery demos. So I've done a lot of work for companies, charities like PAVs. So you could be in a village hall anywhere in the county, just talking to the community. Then the wellbeing days, so that would be going into a company. So we've done those for like the Port 30 Cook, LNG, done lots of work with Valero, on like shift work and nutrition, many companies. So we go in, there might be other businesses there on the day, and they're there just to talk about like ideas for their staff, give them tasters, recipe ideas, that kind of thing. And then the retreats then, so we set up that, I think 2019, so with Beth Howes, who runs a Pilates business. So she started as my PA many years ago, and then she was training to do Pilates. And we always said we should do this together.
Great thing to do. Yeah.
So we started Unwind Retreats, and we did our very first one in a place called Gupton Farm, which is fresh water. I always get this wrong, east or west. One of them. And we had this farmhouse, and there was no dishwasher.
Must have been you in you. Yeah.
And we slept. So we had the beautiful bedrooms upstairs where all the guests slept, and me and Beth slept in the boot room on these 2 camp beds that if you turned over, I think it would have kind of like just swallowed you. And then they were all the pipes above us. So if someone went to the toilet in the night, they're all the like drip. You'd hear all the. So that's how it started. Now we do. So last year we did a lot of retreats. I think it was about 7 residential, maybe 4-day retreats. We run retreats in Spain. So last year we did 2 in Spain. We're doing 1 in October in Spain this year. So a retreat, basically, the ladies only. We take between 10 and 20, depending on the venue size. And then from the moment they come, they're nourished. So with beautiful nutritionally dense food, and then they have this whole program of exercise or talk. So Beth will obviously give them Pilates when they wake up, and then we have anything from Tai Chi, HIIT exercises, yoga, mindfulness, talks, demos.
It's that whole balance again, though, isn't it? It's mind, body, nutrition, everything that ties it together.
And giving them just, they don't have to think about anything. So the retreats are full on when you're in that moment, but running a retreat in Spain is it's the hardest one to do.
So I always imagine, I know when we've spoken about this conversations, these retreats, the glamour, the glitz, the relaxation side, and then there's your role in it, which is the food prep, the talks, and if things are missing, going and then shopping, and I'm hoping you've been able to move on a little bit from the pipes above your head with your part of the accommodation, but it sounds like a retreat for others is a little bit more than that for you.
Yeah. Well, now we insist on having our own bed at least. Sometimes we have to share a bed. Depends on the venue. Our own room at least. There has been point. I think Beth slept on the floor in a venue in Somerset. But we hire these stunning venues, and that is. That was a big risk when we started in Pembrokeshire. So we thought about calling ourselves Pembrokeshire Retreats, but we went to Unwind. And then we thought, let's just hire these venues across the UK. And these venues are stunning, like with pools and saunas and hot tubs, and they cost thousands to hire. And that was like a big risk. Are we going to hire this and are we going to fill it? So it's lovely to say now that we're in a position, we've got such a lovely following, and people come back like year after year.
That's the thing I always see with all the work that you do, the followers, the repeat business, and people are continuing to improve. It's not the case of they've not achieved it. They're continuing to improve. They want to go next level. And whether it's through the retreat and the nutrition. This is something I'm always interested in with all the wonderful stuff you do. Do you find you get a lot of crossover, that someone who comes to your retreat then says, right, what else do you do? And someone who maybe comes to you for a one-to-one consultation says, what's this retreat I've heard about? How does that work?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're running a retreat, quite often then they'll book in for a consultation or a test or and then Beth's client, she's referring to me, I'm referring to her, which is lovely. But you said about challenges, it is tough, especially a retreat, because you are hosting, on a big one. January is hard because we've done before 3 weekends in a row in January. This year we did 2, but 3 weekends in a row because it's January. The midweek's mental because it's January. Everyone wants to. So it's not like, I'll have a quiet weekend and on the weekend I'll do this retreat. You've got all the allergies and intolerances that we're catering for. So I have just like a big sheet, and then everyone's allergies and the menus, and but mentally it's hard because you are hosting all these people
Yeah.
and you want them to have that experience. My daughter now, so Isabel, the miracle baby, is now 14.
I think of her as your fifth team member.
Yeah.
I have to say, very often seeing her at events and
Yeah, and she did a day retreat with us. It probably about 2 years ago now, and she did it, and she is like energetic, and she said, "Mum, I know now why you don't want to talk to me when you come because it's just crazy."
Yeah.
And I normally wake up super early, and I'm like, right, okay,
Go.
what have we got to do? And some people come in and because I'll do all the catering, and some people come in and they'll say, "Oh, can we ask you about this?" And I'm like, right, okay, I'll try and talk to you, but I'm like cooking about 10 things behind me. Or you're doing all that, and then you're doing a demo, you're doing a demo or a talk about gut health at like 2:00, and right, so I've got to do all this cooking, and then lay it out, and then do the talk. So yeah, at the end, you're just like, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, there's so many bits that are hitting me in terms of things you've experienced. In terms of, number one, sticking to your values. Number two, being focused. Also, the bit you said about is of taking a risk, backing yourself as well. There's all those bits that kind of come into it. So with all those kind of bits and pieces in mind, when did you know, over the 12 years, I've got a business and it's working? When did you kind of get that feeling that this was it?
I'd say even after a year, it was quick. And I did do advertising in the first sort of couple of years. And then after that, people just word of mouth. That's how Pembrokeshire is, isn't it? So, you're doing a good job. You don't advertise and people just keep booking and booking and booking. So quite quickly, and when I had that first building, we had, there was quite a big office. And I was thinking, how can I kind of get a bit of help here to pay the rent, because it was, a lease is expensive, another risk. So we built a wall, and then I started renting out the other side. So we had like acupuncture, counselling, and then Aspire Beauty, she came to rent it sort of full time. So you felt like you were, you're a proper business then. So yeah, I would say early on, quite quickly, I felt like this is, and then I'd say 2 years in, that's when I was asked to publish a cookbook.
I was going to say, because all these things that you do, and you've had time to write books as well. So yeah, tell us about the books. How did that all kind of fit in? Was that a request, or was that something you dreamed of doing? Or?
Yeah, so I didn't really dream of doing it, but I when I started the business, I wanted to offer a weight loss plan that had support from a bigger backing. So I started working with Zoe Harcum, who does the Harcum diet, which felt very in keeping with just eat real food. That's her principle. Not kind of counting calories or weighing food, just eating real food and not eating processed food. And I kind of got this book. A friend told me, "Oh, I've just done this diet," and I felt great. And I was like, let's have a look at it. And I thought, well, I'll just email them. And I thought it was like an American company. I thought I'll email them and say, this is what I'm doing and I'd love to. And then I got this phone call from a very Welsh sounding husband, Andy. And then they said they lived in Wales, near Newport, and then had some meetings, and they were quite happy for me to sort of use their so we did a few events actually. Zoe came down, we did an event in the Torch Theatre in the early days, and then they offered, they said, we'd love for you to publish a cookbook and we'll endorse it, and it can obviously match then for their customer base, and obviously I could, so that was, I think probably it's about 8 years old. I think it sold about 5,000 copies, which is, that is a proud moment to have that book.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't do that well in school at all. So to have this kind of book that you've and like lots of feedback, because it is on Amazon as well. So people will email you from Canada and say, "Oh, I just made your." It's surreal. Nice. Even the other day, I was in the new Waldo Lounge in Tenby, and a lady said to me, one of the staff, she said, "Have you got a cookbook?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, she was looking at, and she said, I got your book in my kitchen. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was a proud moment.
Oh, it's lovely. And I think it's that whole thing, someone recognise you because you hang off the edge of their bookshelf. And
Yeah.
But I love the bit you mentioned there in terms of the, you know, feeling proud of yourself for the things that you've achieved, but also the moment of, as you said, school wasn't necessarily a highlight for you. However, you continued to grow and and challenged yourself. And it just shows there's no limits to what you can do as long as you give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
And I love that. But you've mentioned a lot of stuff in terms of Wales, Pembrokeshire, and connecting with people and so on. What does it mean to have a business in Pembrokeshire to you? Is it something that stands out?
I think it's such a lovely network. So when I worked in Radio Pembrokeshire for 10 years, I was business to business. Yeah. So, you know, some of the relationships now are 22 years old, and you're ringing that same contact. But, you know, when I started the business, I had great support because I could ring the companies I'd worked with for 10 years and go, look, I'm doing this now, but would I be able to come and, you know, speak to a staff or run an event? And even when I started on the marina in Milford, I need to call it the waterfront because that's what it's. Yeah. There was such lovely support, especially Physio Fit, who's based down there, Jerome, you know, just promoting referrals, posters, and it's a nice little hub down there now because we've got chiropractor, the physio, I think there's a hearing centre, there's a gym, so acupuncture was there, and it is that just everyone's kind of supporting and referring, and I think, I mean, I worked in Sussex for a few years. When I was 19 I started in banking many years ago, and it's different. It's pacier, but it's a lot more competition, whereas here it's a genuine referral. I mean, I hardly ever do any advertising. This year we're sponsoring a few things, but because I think everyone's very supportive, and it's lovely to be able to have been part of that business network for so long, and now to be able to, you know, give people jobs and opportunities, and it's nice.
So do you in that case, do you kind of think with Pembrokeshire in terms of being able to grow and be successful, it's connection, it's relationships? So advertising obviously one thing, but connection and relationships key to it?
Yeah, I think it's everything, because it's such a small county that if you do a bad job in one business or one person, that's gonna you know, make or break. And I'm always mindful of that, you know, when we go into these big companies, that we have to be you know, professional and turn up on time, all the basics, because that could ruin your future really. And I guess the flip of it is when you do a good job, it magnifies again in terms of how good you are, so who else do you pass it on to? And that's lovely. People will ring and say, oh, you did this for can we? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And that's the lovely part of it. Well, you know, we talked about some businesses, and I'll come to some of those in just a moment, but working in Pembrokeshire, have there been any people that have inspired you, that have made you go, do you know what, I don't want to be them, but I can see what can be achieved? Are those kind of like people or individuals in Pembrokeshire that you've seen and thought, yeah, they've inspired me? Anyone that kind of springs to mind on that side? Well, Westwell Systems, who they do all things computer. Yeah. You can tell how technical I am. That's why I need them. Switch it on, switch it off again. That's as best I can do. Yeah. So Anthony, who started that business, he so they're about 10 years old, maybe 11, are similar. So when I started, he actually rented one of their rooms from me, and he was just starting on his laptop. I mean, and now it's grown, and he's got, you know, all these staff, but their customer service is amazing. Even to the point where about 2 weeks ago, I was doing a wellbeing day for a team of cardiac rehab nurses for Pembrokeshire, Cardiac and Carmarthenshire, and they wanted to do some presentations. They had a guest come down to do a presentation. I was doing a presentation. The projector wouldn't work. And I was like, oh no. Thinking, what can I do? What can I do? You know, this is quite a big deal. So I rang Westwell Systems and I said, I'm not far from about 2 miles away doing this event. Like, can you log into my laptop? And they were like, well, the signal wasn't great. We can't get in. They said, I tell you what, we'll just come. We'll just come now. I'm like, okay, thank you. Lifesaver. And they just came, and they needed a cable, and off they went. And another guy came, and he brought that. But the customer service is amazing, and it's a similar fear. I've never said to him. He knows now if he's
He said it
listening.
now. Definitely has to listen. Please let him know. Yeah.
That it started to me like
Yeah.
this one person on the laptop, and it's grown into this amazing company, but just so professional.
Yeah.
Which I like that has such a big part to play, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's a really big thing. So, as you said, Westwell Systems, Anthony, any other kind of Pembrokeshire-based companies that you look at and you go, wow? Any others? Because I know there's so many to choose from, aren't there? That's the thing. People forget that sometimes.
I think so many, and even the ones that have failed, because in lockdown that was such a test of businesses, wasn't it? And I kind of loved watching like who actually decided we're going to just maybe retire now or use this as a bit of a not an excuse, but and some people have really had to put a spin on the business and think, well, I'm going to do this. And so I think I'm just impressed with anyone that's self-employed.
To have that drive to get up every day and believe in yourself, isn't it? That's the thing.
And smaller, because I think if you're bigger and you've got all this help and departments to help you, I think, small businesses, there's so much. I mean, and I'm a member of CoLab, which I know that you kind of running and all those businesses in that room, like, all of similar size. And I think it is harder for the smaller because you have to do everything, which is hard. So to anyone that's self-employed, to anyone that's kind of, taking that risk and put some of those out there, I think I'm just in awe of.
Yeah. I always think that, and I think that's the thing sometimes when you do have your own business or you're doing things by yourself, don't always stop and think how far you've come. And it's that just taking a moment to think, do you know what, look at what I've achieved, look at what I've learned and using that. And it's really important so I could take those breaks. But bearing that in mind, this is a big question for me now for you. So many things you've achieved over the last 12 years. What's next? If you've got like a dream for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, what's going on with Health Aspire? What's next for you?
So at the start of the year, I kind of felt like I wanted to focus a lot more on wellbeing events. I think it's an interesting time and a scary time because there are so many companies now offering testing, which has been such a massive part of our business. So, online now you can get a test, you can find a promo code, you can get it cheaper than us, which is hard. But, we're trying to give a full package of advice around that. But to support that side of the business, we're going to have to grow in another way. And these wellbeing events are, I think businesses are much more on it now with supporting their staff wellness, which is brilliant.
Very true.
So that, the work we can do there. I've just started working with a company in Harrogate called Health Wellbeing, two lovely ladies.
Nice journey.
Yeah, long.
How many places can you get to in the same time on an aeroplane?
I know.
That's the quiz I have with myself sometimes.
I know. So working with them, doing a lot more kind of wellbeing webinars, that kind of thing. And then it is in the back of my mind to commercialize the energy balls, and over the last 2 years I'm like, shall I do it, shall I not? And I'd love to call them raw balls and sell them in pairs.
There's a win right there.
But again, it's like that fear, isn't it, of what happened with truffle. Can I do it? And would then Health Aspire fail, or does Health Aspire need this company because all these testing, and that's going to drop? So I'm a bit of a crossroads again, but I think it would be great, to see that we are going all over the place doing these events. So with Health and Wellbeing in June, I'll be doing a wellbeing day one in Oxford, one in Swindon, and that's brilliant, isn't it, to be able to do that?
No, it's incredible. Some really exciting things there, that's for sure. So, but I'm going to say, is there one part of what you do that you enjoy the most personally? Because obviously you do all these wonderful things. You do the wellbeing days, you do the demos, you go into businesses, you work one-to-one. What area do you love the most? I guess that's probably the right question to ask.
I'd say when you're working one-to-one with people, you see change and it's quite quick and people are always surprised. they go, well, I just feel it's only been 2 weeks, a week. I feel better already. And they're like, well, yeah, because, if you're eating all this food your body doesn't like, essentially poisoning yourself 3 times a day, and now you're giving it nourishment, you're going to feel better quite quickly. So I love watching, and each time they're coming in, it's like their complexion changes, their eyes are white, they just look brighter and better. So I do love working one-to-one, but then I also do love, going into the schools, and you'll get a little email from a mum, and she'll say, my children ask me all the time, can I do cooking with you? But I didn't know how to cook, or I just was using like a pizza and putting it in the oven, and then they send you this photo of a cottage pie they've made, and they're so proud. And it's like those tiny little things, that's going to make such change. And because the business is 12 years old, I have people coming up to me saying, oh, my child came to you when they were 8, and now they've gone on to be a chef, or to into healthy eating, and I think, oh, that's amazing, isn't it? So I think it is. It's just seeing change in individuals. I love that.
That's a lovely point. Yeah. Now, I feel there's been so much value in this conversation already, in terms of things you've learned, things you've experienced, and it's really good to hear about the link between doing things are not going quite to plan, but still being able to come through and stick to your values. If you had to share a tip or a couple of tips for anybody who had a business in Pembrokeshire, starting or existing, what would you offer them? What would you suggest to them?
I would say make sure you've got a good support network. Get a nutritionist.
Yeah, definitely. First step.
Look after yourself, because it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's, people say, do you have any me time? I'm like, not much. Yeah. So just try and make sure you protect that bit, because at the start it's so exciting and it's easy, isn't it? You get sucked into it, but you've got to keep that going. And I think it's just keeping the faith. And there is, last April, one of my bigger contracts ended, and because I've been so involved with it, I was like, I hadn't really sown any seeds for future. And I was like, oh God, it's like it's quiet. That April was quiet, and it really unnerved me to the point where I applied for a job, and that just played havoc with my mind. Wow. And I was like, just I don't know what's going to happen, and you kind of go, right, have a word with yourself, get back out there, do what you network, talk to people, go back to basics, and then it was a mental year again. So I think it is just hold your nerve and just think like it will be okay. Just go back to your core beliefs, isn't it? And just go for it again.
I love that bit you said about going back to what you knew work, connecting, talking to people, networking. That lifts you again. That's a fantastic tip. Now, there's one last thing, really important thing I've got to ask you. If people want to know more about you and Health Aspire, your wellbeing days, one-to-ones, how do they reach out? How do they connect with you? What's the best way?
So the website, healthaspire.co.uk. I am more present on Facebook, our Facebook page. I am trying to get my head around Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I don't think I can. But the Facebook page, if you kind of really want to see the behind the scenes and what we're doing and little tips and daily, and then to find out, kind of full information, the website would be
Website is a good one. Brilliant. Ellen, I've got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been inspirational, I would say, in terms of the journey you've had, but also how many people you've helped through your years at Health Aspire. So I say a massive thank you for coming on. And if there's an opportunity to work with you again, I would love to. But Ellen, thanks so much for coming on, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me.